Did you know that in New York, a hot dog is considered a sandwich for tax purposes? Or that the Earl of Sandwich may not have actually invented the sandwich? The world of sandwiches is full of surprising twists and tasty turns. So, what exactly makes a sandwich a sandwich? You might think it's simple. Bread, filling, bread, done. But, oh boy, it's a bit more layered than that. According to Merriam-Webster, a sandwich, when used as a noun, has two definitions. The first one is pretty straightforward: two or more slices of bread or a split roll having a filling in between. So, your classic peanut butter and jelly or a ham and cheese easily fit into this category. Simple, right? But wait, there's more. The second definition is, and we are not making this up, something resembling a sandwich. Yeah, that's a bit vague, isn't it? It's like Merriam and Webster had a lazy day at the office and decided to keep it open-ended. Now, here's where things get interesting. We all know that a PB&J or a ham and cheese are undeniably sandwiches. But what about burritos, tacos, or even hot dogs? This is where the great sandwich debate comes in. Ask two random people if a hot dog is a sandwich, and you'll probably get two very different answers. Some people argue that if it's got bread and a filling, it's a sandwich. Others strongly disagree, saying things like burritos and hot dogs belong in their own separate categories. To add a little spice to the debate, even the state of New York has weighed in on the matter. In New York, a place known for its delis and food culture, the government has a pretty strict stance. If it looks like a sandwich, it's a sandwich. This is mostly for tax purposes. Sandwiches and similar items sold in delis and bodegas are taxable, while groceries generally are not. So, by New York's definition, burritos, tacos, and yes, even hot dogs fall under the sandwich umbrella. It's all about squeezing the most out of that sandwich tax. Let's dig into the history of the sandwich, a story that's as layered and intriguing as the sandwiches themselves. First up, we have John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich. Now, Montagu was quite the character in 18th century England. He was a British aristocrat known for his love of gambling. The story goes that one day, while deep into a particularly intense gambling session, he didn't want to leave the table for a proper meal. So, he asked for some salted beef to be brought to him between two slices of bread. This way, he could eat with one hand and continue gambling with the other. His friends saw this and thought it was such a clever idea that they started asking for the same as sandwich, and voila, the sandwich was born. However, like all good stories, there's a bit of skepticism about its truth. Some historians doubt whether Montagu actually invented the sandwich. They suggest that he might have popularized it instead. Before Montagu, people in London were already eating bread with various fillings. In fact, the first known use of the word sandwich in print doesn't mention Montagu at all. In 1762, English historian Edward Gibbon wrote about seeing men eating a bit of cold meat or a sandwich in his diary, but there's no mention of our gambling Earl. Now, let's go back even further, long before Montagu was ever born. References to bread and meat combinations appear in various historical texts. In the Middle Ages, people commonly ate meat on trencher bread, which were essentially thick, stale pieces of bread used as plates. These were the medieval ancestors of our modern sandwiches. Even further back, Rabbi Hillel the Elder, who lived during the 1st century BCE, is said to have created a form of sandwich. During Passover, he would combine lamb and bitter herbs between two pieces of matzah. This might be one of the earliest known examples of using bread to hold a filling. And it wasn't just the Middle Ages or ancient Jewish traditions. The ancient Greeks and Romans were also known for their flatbreads filled with various toppings. In fact, it's suggested that Montagu got his taste for sandwiches while traveling through the Ottoman Empire, where flatbreads with fillings were a staple. First, let's head to 19th century Europe. This was when the concept of the sandwich really started to spread. It wasn't just an English phenomenon anymore. People all over Europe were beginning to embrace the idea of a quick, convenient meal you could eat on the go. Sandwiches started popping up in literary works and historical documents of the time, showing just how quickly they were becoming a part of everyday life. Writers would mention them in passing as if everyone already knew what a sandwich was. It's like the original fast food was taking over. Now, jump to the 20th century and things really start to get interesting. This is when sandwiches began to truly boom, especially in America. The variety of sandwiches exploded and they became deeply integrated into American culture. Think about some of the most iconic sandwiches we know today. The Toasted Club sandwich, for instance, became a hit with its layers of bread, mayonnaise, bacon, tomato, and chicken or turkey. It was the go-to choice at gentlemen's clubs and quickly spread to the masses. Then there's the tuna salad sandwich. Initially, it was a wartime ration, but it didn't take long for it to become a fashionable lunch option. Canned tuna turned into a staple, making it easy to prepare and delicious to eat. And let's not forget the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This classic combo got its start in the early 1900s, with the first known recipe published in the Boston Cooking School magazine of culinary science and domestic economics in 1901. Imagine that title on a modern magazine cover. The introduction of mass-produced peanut butter in the early 1920s took the PB&J to new heights. American companies marketed peanut butter heavily to children, and soon, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches became the go-to meal for school lunches. It's hard to imagine a school cafeteria without them. By the 1920s, new sandwiches were also making their debut. Take the po' boy, for example. This sandwich came out of New Orleans when two restaurant owners gave them away for free to striking streetcar drivers, known as poor boys. The combination of fried potatoes, gravy, and roast beef on a French roll became an instant hit and remains popular to this day. And that's not all. As the fast food industry boomed in the mid-20th century, sandwiches became even more pervasive. Think about grinders, heroes, hoagies, and subs. These all originated around the 1960s. And fast food burger joints? They've been around even longer. You might even argue that burgers are just another type of sandwich. After all, they're just fillings between two pieces of bread, right? It's amazing how many variations and interpretations of the simple sandwich exist today, reflecting the rich tapestry of regional and cultural flavors. Bagels, though often associated with breakfast, make fantastic sandwiches too. Think of a smoked salmon and cream cheese bagel, which is a favorite in Jewish delis. Or how about paninis? These Italian-style grilled sandwiches are typically made of ciabatta or baguette, filled with ingredients like mozzarella, tomatoes, and basil, and then pressed to crispy perfection. Another interesting variation is the open-face sandwich. This type defies the traditional sandwich structure by using just one slice of bread topped with whatever your heart desires. It could be smoked salmon and dill, avocado and poached eggs, or even a classic Danish smørrebrød with pickled herring. Open-face sandwiches show that you don't always need two slices of bread to enjoy a fantastic sandwich experience. And here's where things get really fun, and sometimes a bit controversial. Is a hamburger a sandwich? It's got a filling between two pieces of bread, so many say yes. But what about burritos and tacos? They're also fillings wrapped in a type of bread, though it's a tortilla instead of traditional bread slices. Some argue that these should count as sandwiches too, while others vehemently disagree. This debate is not just a fun conversation starter, but also a reflection of how different cultures interpret the sandwich concept. In New York, anything that even remotely resembles a sandwich is considered one. This means burritos, tacos, and hot dogs are all classified as sandwiches there. But head over to Mexico, and they'd probably laugh at the idea of a taco being called a sandwich. Different cultures bring their own flavors and styles to the sandwich table, making the definition wonderfully flexible. From Vietnamese banh mi packed with pickled vegetables and pâté to Middle Eastern shawarma wrapped in pita bread, the sandwich adapts to local tastes and ingredients, proving that it's one of the most versatile foods out there. We're heading to New York, where the state's tax law has a surprisingly big impact on what gets classified as a sandwich. In New York, not all food items are treated equally when it comes to taxes. Groceries like canned goods, meats, and prepackaged fruits and vegetables are generally not taxable. However, foods prepared and sold in store, like those in delis and restaurants, usually are. This is where things get interesting for sandwiches. To maximize tax revenue, New York State had to draw some clear lines about what counts as a sandwich. According to the state's tax guidelines, a sandwich includes pretty much anything with a filling between slices of bread, a roll, or a wrap. This means that not only your classic ham and cheese or PB&J count as sandwiches, but so do burritos, tacos, and even hot dogs. Yes, you heard that right. Hot dogs are considered sandwiches under New York law. Why does this matter? Well, this broad definition means that many more items can be taxed, bringing in more revenue for the state. For businesses, especially those in the food industry, this classification can have significant implications. Delis, bodegas, and restaurants must keep track of these definitions to ensure they are applying the correct taxes. This can mean extra paperwork and careful menu planning to avoid any tax issues. For consumers, this means that when you buy a burrito, taco, or hot dog in New York, you're paying a bit more because of the sales tax. It might seem like a small detail, but it adds up, especially if you're a regular at your local deli or food cart. This classification might also explain why certain foods are priced differently depending on where you buy them. Taxes can influence the final cost. So, there you have it, the story of the sandwich in all its layered glory. From its origins with the Earl of Sandwich gambling away while munching on his convenient creation, to the pre-Earl days when bread and meat combinations were already being enjoyed, the history of the sandwich is as rich as its fillings. We've seen how the sandwich concept spread across Europe in the 19th century, exploded in variety in 20th century America, and evolved into the diverse, globally loved food it is today. Reflecting on all this, it's clear that sandwiches are not just about food, they're a cultural phenomenon. They show how simple ideas can adapt and transform across different times and places, becoming a staple that bridges social and economic divides. Whether you're biting into a classic PB&J, a sophisticated panini, or even a hot dog, you're part of a tradition that spans centuries and continents. Now, it's your turn. What's your favorite sandwich? Have you ever had a debate over what counts as a sandwich? Share your thoughts and sandwich stories with us.